Welcome back, and it's a brew day here at Daft Cat. What I'm doing today is a Galaxy Pale, basic pale ale. No proper hops in it though. We're using Flex for bittering. We're using Galaxy, the Bertha Spectrum Galaxy for a starter fermentation, dry hop addition, and we're going to see how much we can get out of just the Spectrum and not actually using any real green leaf, pellet or plug hops in the boil. The inspiration for the beer was the Darkstar did a very limited edition, got to be 10 years ago now, Hophead Galaxy, which was a single hop version of Hophead Galaxy, of the Darkstar's Hophead, and I loved it. So I'm going to use the base malt that is online as the recipe or a clone for that recipe. So for a 20 litre batch, I've got 3,500 of grams of Marisotta, 200 grams of Cara Amber. We're hitting it with 7 ml of Flex, boiling for 60 minutes, no hops at all. I'll put some Protoflock in at 15 minutes, and then at 2 days I'll bung the Spectrum, the Galaxy Spectrum in, and we'll see what we can get from that. It may work, it may not. I wanted to see what you could do without using any real green hop matter in the kettle, cutting out all the kettle losses, all the dry hop losses, all the chances for oxygen to get into your secondary fermentation when you dry hop, things like that. Anyway, on with the brew day. I'll video it step by step, show you what a brew day is like at Daft. It's a brew day at Daft Cat, and where's the brew day start? With the water. So we start off by running all our reverse osmosis water for the batch, which goes into that fermenter up there, which acts as a holding tank. Comes out into a 5 litre bottle where I pre-acidify the liquor. From there, goes into the grain further. Once all the water's in the grain further, we turn it on, load the recipe in the app, and hit start heating. And then we wait. The app will then tell us when it's time to start adding the grain. I'll see you in a minute. Grain feather's telling me we're up to strike temperature. It's time to do something with some grain. Sometimes what I'll do is pour the grain in directly to the mash liquor or water in the kettle and give it a good stir and make sure that's all amalgamated. Other times I'll do what's called underletting, especially if I've not got too much grain like today. What I'll do, I'll just pour all the grain in. So for today's recipe, that is 3,500 grams of crushed Marisotta. Crisp Marisotta, that is. And for those who follow brands and maltsters, this one's 200 grams of crushed Weyermann Cara Amber. And then what we do, gently lower that into the liquid, giving the water a chance to slowly percolate up through all the grain. This is called underletting. The other way of doing it is to actually fill up the, if you use a separate hot liquor tank or whatever, fill up your boiler with the grain already in the malt pipe. This can be a good way of making sure that the grain is evenly wetted throughout. As the water comes up, it fills up all the air bubbles so that you don't get great big clumps of grain. Okay, so after just a quick stir, just to make sure there was no lumps, and there wasn't, stick the recirculating hose on. I like to just give the end a wet before shoving it in. Now with this much water in, because I'm doing it brewing in bag style, you may wonder why I'm worrying about recirculating. Because the top of the grain's already wet, it's all soaked. What it does, the benefit of it is it just helps keep the temperature more even throughout. You're taking the heated liquid straight off the bottom, putting it on the top, and then hopefully it's all percolating through the grain. Although with the G40 there is all these holes all up the side, which does mean you get a bit more fluid movement coming back up than you would in a fully enclosed malt basket. So all we need to do now is pull up the app and tell it to start the mash. So we've had the notification from the phone telling us that the mash has finished, it's done 60 minutes. It's now increasing the temperature to a mash out. What this period does now, it just helps make sure that the temperature's even. The enzymes are all denatured and have stopped working. And the higher temperature does help some of the sugar still in the grain just to rinse off a bit better. Okay, so it's beeping at me telling me the mash is finished. Let's stop that. Press set button, stops beeping at me. Now what I need to do, disconnect the recirculation pipe, lift up the whole malt pipe and let it drain. Whilst it does this, we'll get the boiler heating up to the boil. So press set again, it's now turned the pump off, telling me to lift up the grain basket. So let's do that. And then when that's done, what I'll do, I'll pop into the kitchen and just give this a rinse, because otherwise it's going to be very sticky and we're going to need it later. You get your handle, 2 holes, one on either side, and now it comes to the hard bit. This one's not too bad, as it's not a big brew. But if you're doing a high volume or a big ABV beer, this is going to be very heavy when you lift it out. So there we go. Grain basket's lifted up. Press the set button. Now the boiler's starting to heat up, all the liquid underneath. We're just going to let this drain out for a bit and then we'll empty it out. What I normally do, the council have said I can just put it out with the food waste, so they've sent us an extra food waste bin. I just normally put that next to this and dig it straight out into the food waste bin. There we go, digging out the mash tun. Nothing exciting, I just use one of these scoops. Can't remember where I got it actually. There we go, that's that done. Tie this off. And then we just take this, rinse it off at the outside tap. Now that's had a quick rinse, I'll take it in the house and give it a proper wash in the kitchen. So, back to the brew. Getting up to temperature, whilst I've been doing that, the boiler's up to 91.5 degrees, so it's nearly up to a boil. What I'm going to do, go and get the Flex edition ready, because that needs to go in for a 60-minute boil. In case you've not used or come across advanced hop products before, here's 3 different ones I've got on hand here. Flex, this is used for bittering. You dose it in at the start of the boil, boil it 60 minutes or however long you'd normally boil your hop addition, and you use that in place of your bittering hops. These two, the Incognito and the Spectrum, are both used in the back end of the process when you're trying to dry hop. So instead of actually adding green vegetal matter to your fermenter, you add Incognito is one, and it comes in several different hop varieties, or Spectrum. These are the two we're using in my brew today. Flex for bittering, so we'll be using about 6.5–7 ml of that. And the Spectrum Galaxy is a dry hop edition. And that's all the hop products we intend to put in. If, however, after dosing with this 20 grams of Spectrum Galaxy, it isn't quite hitting the spot, I do have 100 grams of pellet Galaxy in the box, just in case. And if you haven't seen Flex before, this is it. It is a very sticky, very intense thing. I remember someone getting some on their hand and licking it accidentally at BrewCon one year. They didn't taste anything for the rest of the day. Right, we're back at the boiler. That beeping was to tell me we've reached a boil. So it's time to add the hops, or in this case, the flax. And as you can probably tell, squeezing that is difficult, just like sucking it up was. So we add that and press the set button on the controller. It's telling us to add our additions, press it once more, and you can do it in the app as well. And now it's started the timer for a 60-minute boil. And there we go, it's in. Not recommended dunking your syringe in there, but quickly just rinses off some of what's left on there. And now, 60-minute boil. Whilst you're away, quickly got all that washed, dried, ready to put away. Just popped out to check on it, see how it's doing. 37 minutes left, boiling fine. We're doing great. I can head back inside and carry on with something else. We've got about 15 minutes left in the boil, so it's time to drop in half a Protafloc tablet. That'll just help some of the protein coagulate and stay in the kettle instead of transferring into the fermenter. Help it drop out of the beer if it does get through to the fermenter and give you a slightly clearer beer. And some yeast nutrient. I use the Y yeast beer nutrient. Half a teaspoon, I think. But that should do. That's just to help the yeast kick off nicely and make sure they stay in good health throughout the process. We're now at the point where we got just under 10 minutes or so left, and it's time to start thinking about chilling of the wort down, because this is all at 100 degrees at the moment. When it goes into the fermenter, ready to pitch the yeast, we want it about 20. So the grain feather comes with a chiller that's hanging on the fence there. That's called a counterflow chiller, so you pump your hot wort through it one direction, pump cold water through it the other way. Heat exchanging happens within the coils on the sides, so the water gets hot, the beer gets cold, and then the red pipe at the bottom goes off to a drain for the now hot water that's been used to cool it down to go down the drain. So, hose pipe into the blue hose, hot water out through the red, and then for the boiler we've got two pipes. We've got this end, which just goes into the pump outlet there, and this end, which is the return. So what I'll do in a second, I'll turn the pump on and I'll quickly run the first bit off into a jug or something, just in case there was anything left in the cooling coil that you can't see, because it's a pure black coil. And then once I'm sure it's had a quick rinse, I'll pop the hose where it is now so it recirculates back into the boil kettle and gets the coil hot, that will sterilise or at least sanitise and kill off anything that's in there to make sure that the beer is safe. So you don't have to do this step, and I know a lot of people don't, but I will just run some off. So the water's now going into the bottom. It will work its way around all the coils, and we'll just quickly run half a bottle or something through into the jug before recirculating. And that is taking a very long time to work through. That should have already come through, which does make me wonder if the pump's blocked, which is possible. The pump's not really supposed to be operated when it's actively boiling. So you could have a steam pocket there, or if somehow that coil's blocked. Okay, so I've just disconnected this, lifted this pipe up, and the water did flow, so the coil's not blocked. It's that the pump isn't pumping. Still doesn't seem to be doing the job. I'll turn that back on a sec. Still don't seem to get any flow, so what I'm going to have to do is just blow back through here, force some air through, and that will clear out whatever's blocking the pump. So I plugged the recirculation hose back in from earlier. Trying to blow back through it, and it is solid. Let's see if I can just get the pump to... There we go. We've reached the end of the boil, so let's see if we can get the pump to start chugging anything. No, the pump appears to be completely inactive. What I'm going to have to do is drop all the way down to that tap at the bottom and see if I can clear out whatever's in the pipe. So there we go, we've got some grain out that's gone through the plate at the bottom, which is probably what was blocking the pump. Let's bring you back over here. Make sure you can see. And now let's try the pump. Nope, I can hear the pump, the motor going, but nothing happening. There we go. So what it took in the end was a combination of blowing down there and opening the tap at the bottom, because it was this sight glass or pipe coming up here which was blocked, and as this was blocked it couldn't pump liquid through it. Now that's unblocked. Let's go back to our original plan, plug that in, pump some water. There we go. Now for some reason I'm getting an awful lot of grain coming through with that. I know the bottom plate was on properly to begin with. Whether the bottom plate's got disturbed or something, or whether this is just crushed too fine, I don't know. But that should not all be going through the holes in the bottom plate. Right. There we go, recirculating the water through the cooler. just to sanitize the cooler. Give it a couple, because I mean that water is currently going around at 91 degrees C. That's hot enough to kill anything. So once that's had a couple of minutes, then I'll turn on the cold water tap and it will start chilling the water down. Whilst I'm waiting for that, I'm going to go and sanitize the fermenter. Okay, it's time to turn on the tap. And be careful of the red pipe when you first turn the tap on, because it is going to get very hot and then it's going to cool down quite quickly. You can often end up with a burst of steam coming out the end at this point. There we go, cold water is now flowing through. Yeah, this red pipe, very hot, very flexible now. This one, if you can see it, the return pipe from the coil, much cooler. So now what I can do, I can empty all the stir sand out of the fermenter and run this straight off into the fermenter. Now we can briefly turn the pump off. Move the outlet pipe into the sanitised fermenter. Now you just balance flow rate using this valve here to slow the flow rate down so that it's coming out sufficiently cool and done. So if it's still coming out a bit warm, you can just slow the flow rate down here. All the water will spend more time in contact with cold water, or you can speed up the cold water flow rate. Either of those will make that outlet cool down. As it is, that is now coming out at a cool enough temperature that I can immediately pitch the yeast when I'm ready. It's falling into the bucket from a fair height, so it's doing some of the work of oxygenation for me. So all we've got left to do really, another way you could do this but I don't recommend, is when you turn the water on you can just keep recirculating back into the boiler until the temperature reaches your target temperature and then pump it all out into the fermenter. Whilst you can do that, it's a lot less efficient because the temperature difference between your cold water coming in and the water in the kettle gets smaller and smaller, so they're nearly the same before you reach your desired fermentation temperature. So if you do that, it's going to take longer, you're going to use a lot more cooling water to do it. This way all the beer just comes in contact with the cooling liquid once and it's in the fermenter. There you go, and that's effectively done. I do have a Whirlpool attachment, but I didn't bother using it with no hops in there. It's just some of the flour that made it through the bottom of the grain basket. So there's plenty of clear plate there left for the water to get out. Now to clean the boiler. We've taken the bottom plate out, given it a rinse, and that leaves you looking somewhat like that. We've got a cold water hose coming in, so I can just rinse this all out, drain it out the bottom into a jug, pour it away using this bottom tap. Now bear in mind, this bottom tap is not an official one. It didn't come with the boiler. I believe they've got an official accessory now you can buy, even if it still doesn't come with the boiler. But believe me, not having a tap on the bottom there for cleaning makes this a whole lot harder than it needs to be. With that, it's very easy to clean in place. You don't have to end up taking the whole pot away, emptying it out, tipping it up, anything like that, taking it to a sink. You can literally just do it all here in the boiler itself. So put a bit more water in there, drain that out. Now if I wanted to, I could move this over a drain and do it without using jugs. Whatever you want to do. For me, just using a jug a few times works. Once that's done and drained out, what I'll do, I'll put some fresh water in there and then run it through the coil again to clean that out. Then I'll get a dishwashing sponge, put the other pipe back on, the recirculation one, recirculate that and clean the inside because there are some grain marks left around the edge. There you go. Now I've got the worst out. I've moved it over slightly so that I can just run a pipe straight down to a water drain. As it's not a load of grain still left in there, I don't mind doing it now. We're currently just recirculating through the chilling coil a minute. I'll turn that off in a second, drain this out, then rinse off that pipe, clean the inside. That's that done. There is some scale on the bottom, so that's where you could use something like Grain Fair, the high performance cleaner. Instructions are available on the website, so I won't read them all out. But basically they want 15 litres of hot water and 2 tablespoons of this cleaner. So what you can do, you could do what I'm going to do, which is bung 15 litres in there and use the boiler to heat it up. So there we go, it's in. It's a bit under the 20 litres I wanted, but that's fine, I'll take the hit. Just sanitised and sprinkled in 1 pack of SO4. I'll just leave that on the top, no need to stir it in. It will gently hydrate on the top and drop in and do its thing. As it's low ABV, it doesn't need anything fancy. No hydrating it. A lot of the yeast don't even call for that anymore. If it was a bigger beer, you might want to pitch 2 instead of 1 pack. But that's it. Now, back to the boiler, where we're nearly up to temperature on the high performance cleaner. Brew day done. Grain feathers put back away. I'll let it dry out for a couple of days before I put the cover on it and the cooler in. Temperature controller is all set for the fermenting fridge. And the beer is here. Thanks for watching.
Remember to hit that like button and subscribe. Thanks for watching Daft Cat Brewing.